Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player in NHL history. He's the gold standard of hockey stars today. While Gretzky is the greatest player in NHL history, there is one trade involving him that changed the National Hockey League forever. And that's what we're going to look at today. Play the intro. Gretzky's story begins in the World Hockey Association, a rival to the National Hockey League. Gretzky, after dominating junior hockey for years, wanted to go professional. Only problem is he wasn't old enough to go to the NHL. Fortunately for him, the WHA, in an attempt to gain some younger stars, lowered the age barrier. In June 1978, Gretzky was signed to a 7-year, $1.75 million personal services contract with the Indianapolis Racers. First off, what's a personal services contract? Instead of a standard contract, this contract allows a player to provide his or her services to the owner in any way possible. In this case, it was suiting up and playing for the Racers. And second, why was Gretzky signed to a personal services contract? I'll get to it later. Seems all fine and dandy, right? Not exactly. The Racers were, in the lamest pun possible, speeding off track towards a brick wall. Nelson Scalabrini, yes, the same guy who would eventually move the Flames from Atlanta to Calgary, was in financial trouble. Indianapolis was losing an estimated total of $40,000 a game. Scalabrini had no choice but to cut his losses. Not even 10 games into his career, Gretzky was traded. He had the choice of either the Winnipeg Jets or the Edmonton Oilers. He chose Edmonton. On November 2nd, Gretzky, Peter Driscoll, and Eddie Mio were sold to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for $700,000. A few months later, on Gretzky's birthday, he was extended to a 10-year personal services contract. Oh, I forgot to mention, the Indianapolis Racers weren't the only team losing money in the WHA. The World Hockey Association itself was losing money. Merger talks between the WHA and NHL were happening, but nothing materialized. Until March 1979. The NHL allowed 4 teams: the Winnipeg Jets, the New England Hartford Whalers, the Quebec Nordiques, and the Edmonton Oilers. The NHL treated the merger like an expansion. The rosters of the 4 teams were wiped clean except for the 2 skaters and 2 goalies who were able to be protected. Gretzky was going to the NHL, but there was a catch. He had to go into the NHL entry draft. Or did he? Remember the personal services contract? Because of the contract, Gretzky was able to stay with the Oilers. If Gretzky voided his contract and went to the draft, he would be drafted by the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies were a mess, and had been a mess since they were the Kansas City Scouts. Gretzky didn't want to go to what he would eventually dub the Mickey Mouse organization. Back on topic. In the NHL, Gretzky was a star. It wasn't just him. He was part of a young Oilers team with Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, and Grant Fuhr. 5 years after their entrance into the NHL, the Oilers won the Stanley Cup. They did it several times in 1984, 85, 87, and 88. Gretzky was on top of the hockey world. But all good things must come to an end. Cracks were showing after the Oilers' Cup win in 1988. Not even a month or week later, only 2 hours after hoisting another Stanley Cup, Gretzky was told that Oilers owner Peter Pocklington put him on the trade block. So why would Pocklington try to trade his best player? Well, it turns out he needed money for his other businesses, which were struggling at the time. Pocklington needed more money by any means possible, and that included shipping off his best player. There were 3 teams Gretzky was offered to: the Detroit Red Wings, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Los Angeles Kings. Then on August 8th, it happened. Gretzky, along with Marty McSorley and Mike Krushelninski, were traded in exchange for Jimmy Carson, Martin Gelinas, 3 first-round draft picks in 1988, 91, and 93, and $15 million. The team he was traded to? The Los Angeles Kings. And that was the end of No, it wasn't. There's more. What became known as the trade sent shockwaves across the National Hockey League and Canada. Canadians were upset. It got to the point that Nelson Reeves, the Canadian Democratic Party House leader, demanded that the Canadian government block the trade. If you could have guessed, it never happened. Gretzky confirmed that he was traded while shedding tears in a press conference. There was speculation that the trade was a conspiracy. And who was the mastermind behind this? Janet Jones, Wayne Gretzky's wife. In July, Wayne and Janet were married in a wedding broadcasted across Canada. Only a month later, the trade happened. There were rumors that Janet persuaded Wayne to be traded to LA to help her acting career. She denied all rumors, so take it with a grain of salt. Following the trade, the Kings would emerge as a true contender. They would make the playoffs several times, and be eliminated every time. Until 1993. The Kings made a run to the Stanley Cup Final. They even won a game. But they would lose the next four to the Montreal Canadiens. Despite this, there was legitimate excitement for hockey in LA. The Lakers and Dodgers weren't the only thing for Angelenos to be excited about. Gretzky's time in Los Angeles was also big for hockey in California. It opened the door for an expansion team an hour south called the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. The Anaheim Ducks. It also brought hockey buzz to the South as many Sun Belt teams were added. However, Gretzky wouldn't last in LA. Due to financial trouble, the Kings were forced to change owners. The new owners were hampered by financial issues and were forced to trade many stars. Gretzky didn't like this and requested a trade. In 1996, he would be traded to the St. Louis Blues. He was decent in St. Louis and nearly got them to the conference finals. The Great One could have stayed with the Blues, but head coach and GM Mike Keenan scared him off due to his abrasive style of coaching. Gretzky signed with the New York Rangers, where he played until 1999 when he retired. His number 99 is retired league-wide, meaning that no one can wear the number 99 in the NHL ever again. As for the Kings, they went through many years of futility, mediocrity, and early playoff exits. Until 2012. As an 8th seed expected to do nothing, the Kings proved everyone wrong. They made a deep run to the Stanley Cup Final where they won the Stanley Cup, becoming the first 8th seed in NHL history to win the Stanley Cup. 2 years later, in 2014, they won another cup. Today the Kings are back on the map. After some rebuilding years, the Kings are on the right track to make a strong run for the cup. If they could stop running into the Oilers in the playoffs. Speaking of which, what have the Oilers been through? You'd think the Oilers would implode after losing the heart and soul of their franchise, but they didn't. In 1990, the Oilers stunned everyone and won the Stanley Cup. It took longer than expected, but Edmonton declined in the 90s. Off the ice, the Oilers were in trouble. The Oilers were on the verge of moving to Houston, but were saved at the 11th hour. The Oilers would struggle for years. Then, after the implementation of a salary cap, the Oilers went on a deep run to the finals. They faced the Carolina Hurricanes, where they were edged in a close 7-game series. After that, the infamous 10-year rebuilding plan happened. The Oilers were able to get a generational talent in Connor McDavid. Today, the Oilers are a team that is always considered to win the cup, yet they never get there. So the question now is, when do we get the McDavid trade? Too soon? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll see you in the next video.